My wife Bella and I had been married for 7 years. We kept up appearances, but behind closed doors we were both seeing other people. It wasn't until the chandelier at the banquet suddenly fell, and I instinctively rushed to protect my girlfriend, that Bella finally broke down. With tears in her eyes, she asked, "Mike, don't you want me anymore?" I looked at her silently, thinking to myself, she looks terrible. I was talking about her in that moment and also about the man I used to be. When I got home, Bella was sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. A long, thin women's cigarette was nestled between her fingers, smoke curling around her. I was a little suspicious. She was actually home on a perfectly good weekend. No schmoozing events, no romantic escapades with her latest boy toy. Besides, Bella wasn't a heavy smoker, not unless something was seriously bothering her. But I didn't say anything. I just gave her a polite, distant nod and headed upstairs. Bella stared straight at me and suddenly said, "I heard you got back last week. Why are you only coming home now?" I just shrugged and smiled. Some things are better left unsaid. Dragging them out into the open spoils the fun, don't you think? Bella took a deep breath, but the smoke made her cough. I stood there unfazed, a good 15 feet away from her, with no intention of showing any concern. After all, the old me would have started fussing the moment I walked in. "You're smoking again? So bad for you. You need to cut down. What about your throat?" I probably would have rushed to get her a glass of warm water, nagging like a worried mom. But the current me just stood there quietly, watching her from a distance. I wasn't blind to the need in Bella's eyes. I just didn't want to acknowledge it. She sighed heavily. "The company just landed a big project. Everyone's watching closely, so you should be careful too." Bella paused, then slowly added, "Mike, I am still your wife after all." I know that. I found it amusing. I used to be the one hysterically insisting on my status. All I got in return was her ridicule and scorn. So now I just smiled sweetly. "I'll be careful. But you should be careful too. I hear Tim's been acting up lately. He's caused you quite a bit of trouble, hasn't he? He's been with you for so many years. It hasn't been easy. You should treat him better, right? Or maybe not." "Mike." Bella's voice was sharp with anger. She stared at me in disbelief, seemingly unable to accept how much I'd changed. I remained perfectly calm, a faint smile playing on my lips. "What is it, honey?" Using that endearment was my way of acknowledging that our marriage still technically existed. After all, our families were closely connected, our business interests deeply intertwined. If not for that, we would have divorced long ago after all the drama. Bella sighed. "You must be tired from your trip. Get some rest." I headed upstairs without looking back, but I heard her whisper, "Honey, I haven't eaten yet." Bella and I had known each other since we were young. Our families had close business ties, a complex web of shared interests. To better solidify our respective business empires, Bella and I were engaged early on. The beginning of our story was sweet. A handsome, talented guy and a beautiful woman, from similar, well-off families. A match made in heaven. The ending, however, was a sad cliché. Estranged, sharing a bed but worlds apart, each finding our own happiness elsewhere. Our marriage started to fall apart from the moment the first lover showed up at our door. The only reason we maintained a facade of peace was for the sake of our business interests. After freshening up, I got a message from my girlfriend, Laura. That clingy little thing knew exactly how to reel me in. She sent a picture of herself in a maid outfit, pouting with a table laden with food. "I'm sick. I feel awful. No appetite. But I still made your favorite dishes, baby. Are you coming over to eat?" I looked at the carefully chosen camera angle. She wasn't asking me to eat food. She was basically asking me to come devour her. Still, thinking of my girlfriend's enthusiasm, I couldn't help but blush a little, even at my age. It was true I'd been back for a week, but I'd gone to see my sweetheart first. Laura was so full of passion, thrilled to see me. She'd pounced on me in the foyer, and things got heated right there. Her young body was a bundle of endless energy, her affection and loving words all directed at me, unconditionally. After finally calming the little whirlwind down, I had to rush back to the office to tie up loose ends. Only when everything was settled did I remember I should probably go home, even if it was just for show. It had only been 2 or 3 days, and here she was, stirring up trouble again. She was a handful. What are you looking at that's making you so happy? Bella, in her pajamas, had come into my room. That was a surprise. Nothing. What do you want? You're my husband. What do you think I want? No thanks. I'm not in the mood. Besides, don't you prefer younger guys? Bella had so many handsome young men around her. She didn't need to bother with someone as jaded as me. Mike, can you stop being so aggressive? I had to laugh. Bella, isn't that what you used to say to me? Bella was speechless. It was true. Those were her exact words. That guy, Leo, was an arrogant one. He thought a few nights with Bella meant he'd found true love. He even had the nerve to confront me, demanding I step aside. Mike, the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. You don't need to cling to the title of Bella's husband and stay with a woman who doesn't love you. At the time, I was drowning in the pain of my wife's betrayal. Leo's provocation made me lose my cool, and I actually got into a physical fight with him, completely forgetting my composure. When Bella arrived, she remained calm, soothing us with gentle words, as if calming two tomcats fighting for their owner's attention. After Leo left, Bella looked at me, a hint of exasperation in her eyes. Mike, look at yourself. What have you become? You're a mess. You don't take care of yourself. You're only in your early 20s, but you've turned into this bitter, angry man. Networking and schmoozing is normal in my world. It's just a bit of fun with them. Don't worry, you'll always be Mike, my husband. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was a mess, my eyes bloodshot. Sleepless nights spent agonizing over my wife's infidelity had left my skin sallow and rough, with heavy dark circles under my eyes. I was born into wealth. I was supposed to be a well-mannered and sophisticated man. I was a highly educated man. How had I let myself become this wreck? Thankfully, the past was in the past. It was all just a nightmare. Bella sighed. She had always been proud, incapable of apologizing or easily admitting fault. Bella's voice was gentle. Mike, I was blind before. You're doing great now. Mike, we've known each other since childhood and been married for years. There's nothing we can't get past. Let's put the past behind us and make a fresh start. We can have a good life together. I was baffled. When this woman wanted to play the field, she demanded I compromise and step back. Now that she wanted to return to family life, I was supposed to just forgive and forget. Bella, life doesn't work that way. I was struggling with how to turn her down when my phone rang. A woman's low, husky voice murmured on the other end. I have a fever. I feel so awful. Bella stared at me in disbelief. The woman's voice was far too clear in the quiet room. I, however, remained calm as I soothed the caller. How did you get a fever? Did you catch a chill last night? You weren't here. I was so cold sleeping alone. Okay, you be good. I'll come over to see you in a bit. After a fair bit of cooing, she reluctantly hung up. Looking back at Bella, she was absolutely furious. I ignored the fuming Bella, went into the walk-in closet to change, and instinctively locked the door. Bella stood at the door, jiggling the handle. When it wouldn't open, she resorted to shouting. Mike, what do you think you're doing? Who is she? She's to me what Leo and Tim are to you. Mike, how dare you? How could you? Quickly changed. Looking at the irate woman before me, I found it rather amusing. I adopted a gentle tone to soothe her, just like she used to when trying to mediate between me and Leo. Honey, what are you making such a fuss about? Is this really a big deal? You need to entertain clients and network. Well, so do we. Don't worry. This girlfriend I have is very well behaved. She'll never cause you any trouble. You will always be Mike's wife in name only. Terror and anger warred in Bella's wide eyes. She knew those words. She had said them to me. Wife in name only. Bella whispered with a bitter smile. What's so great about her? Is she worth all this? I knew Bella couldn't question me with a clear conscience. Whether it was sacrificing myself for her or giving up this marriage for her, I wasn't the one who started this. She was the one who encouraged me to go out and have fun, the one who repeatedly cheated during our marriage. I didn't point out what she left unsaid, because our families still had close business ties, and because our marriage, in name, still existed. I replied with a smile. She's uncomplicated and very passionate. Her world revolves around me. She's just a bit clingy. Honey, you've had so many young lovers before. You surely understand better than I do the pleasures of a young body. I picked up my phone. All right, I can't talk anymore. She's sick, I have to go check on her. Bella's voice was urgent. She's an adult, isn't she? If she's sick, she can go to a doctor. You're not a doctor. I looked at the woman before me, amused. Are you even listening to yourself? Bella was stunned into silence. Once, one of her young lovers had used the same tactic. Back then, I had said the same thing. But Bella had left anyway. I mimicked Bella's past demeanor, using her familiar, gentle words to placate her. Honey, don't be difficult. She hasn't even graduated college yet. All alone in this unfamiliar city. No relatives or friends. She must be so lonely and scared. I'll just go keep her company. There's nothing serious between us. Don't overthink it. I told you, you are my wife. Mike, you're treating me like an idiot. Exactly. Neither of us is an idiot. I threw my hands up in mock exasperation. Well, you insisted on asking, didn't you? Honey, I'm being completely honest with you. At least I'm not making up excuses about working late or dealing with company business to deceive you. I'm simply going to visit my girlfriend. I patted her shoulder affectionately. It's getting late. You should get some rest. If you're bored, you can call Andy over. It's not like he hasn't been here plenty of times. I gently stroked her cheek. Don't worry, I'll behave. I definitely won't cause a scene. Bella clenched her fists. Her voice was cold. Mike, if you dare walk out that door today, we're getting a divorce. I smiled sweetly at her. I'd like nothing better. I ignored the sound of a shelving unit toppling over and a vase shattering behind me. It was just noise. I had given my girlfriend, Laura, one of my properties to live in. The moment I walked in, I was greeted with an enthusiastic welcome. She excitedly pinned me against the entryway wall, kissing and nipping at me. I missed you so much. She grabbed my hand and placed it on her forehead. Quick, feel. Isn't it hot? It did feel a bit warm. Have you taken any medicine? I don't want medicine. Just hold me and I'll be fine. Laura always had boundless energy. One hug and a kiss led to us tumbling onto the bed. The person who had just been whining pitifully about being sick suddenly had no headache or fever. We quickly got down to business. There was no technique, only passion. A clumsy passion, an eager desire to please. She was insecure and needed this kind of close, physical reassurance. I won't deny it, I enjoyed it all. Sometimes I even wondered if Bella enjoyed her flings this way too. Young, handsome men willingly throwing themselves at her on one side. Her husband managing the household and company on the other. It's a win-win, right? But, looking at the young woman clinging to me, her face full of contentment, I smirked. Going head to head with Bella for such a passionate, pure girlfriend? Maybe it wasn't such a bad idea. I met Laura when I was at my lowest. My wife's frequent affairs had me constantly on edge, a nervous wreck. But Bella just thought I was being intolerant, that I was making a fuss over nothing. That actor, Joshua, must have been her favorite at the time. Bella lavishly showered him with gifts and resources, and even flaunted their relationship publicly on multiple occasions. It was basically like rubbing my face in the dirt, me, her actual husband. Joshua, however, seemed to have learned from Leo's experience. He didn't show up spewing nonsense about the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Instead, he opted for a slow torture, death by 1,000 cuts. Intimate photos and videos of him and Bella appeared in my email, texts, and even among my documents, like a plague. A subtle yet blatant mockery of my pathetic situation. He even brazenly sent me their hotel room number. I knew he wanted to use me to pressure Bella, then use his fan base to force me to back down. Unfortunately, I wasn't thinking clearly back then. I was like a cornered animal, ready for mutual destruction. I rashly confronted them. The argument ended with Bella protecting Joshua, and me getting shoved into the TV stand. The searing pain is still fresh in my memory. Hot blood stained my clothes. Afterward, Bella, out of guilt, reined herself in for a while. My parents also came to talk to me. What are you making such a scene for? Can't you be more understanding? You've been married for so long. Why make a fuss with Bella over such a small thing? I keenly realized that whether I had feelings for Bella or not, I was a sacrifice for a family alliance, destined to marry her. No matter how messed up she was deep down. I knew even more clearly that Bella dared to act so recklessly because she was certain I wouldn't dare to divorce her. I couldn't help but wonder, if I were the one holding the power, would things be different? Taking advantage of Bella's guilt, I proposed going back to work at my own family's company. She agreed. After all, my moping around the house, lost in my thoughts, was a nuisance to her too. But she didn't know that once I had my own wings, she wouldn't be able to cage me anymore, because my heart had completely died. That period was like being broken down and rebuilt for me. I had married Bella right after graduation, so I had to learn everything from scratch. The hushed ridicule from colleagues, the undermining from my brother-in-law, the teasing from my family. I felt like a clown, jumping through hoops, desperately trying to earn some respect for myself. All stories of glamorous transformations are exciting, but the process of change is inevitably painful. A project I'd worked hard to secure was snatched away by my brother-in-law, with my father-in-law's blessing. My wife also thought I didn't need to try so hard. That work was just a way to blow off steam. I was dejectedly drowning my sorrows at a bar when I met Laura, who was also going through a tough time. I noticed her immediately, mainly because she was stunningly beautiful. In a place like that, a noisy, rowdy bar, such a rare beauty stood out. Her eyes were clear, with a cold aloofness and an unyielding stubbornness. Like a white crane mistakenly fallen into mud, clearly out of place, yet gritting her teeth and enduring. Laura was serving drinks to customers when a few burly, middle-aged men surrounded her. One of them, with greasy hands, was caressing her, a smirk on his face. Laura had a backbone. She slapped his hand away. This seemed to pique his interest. He pulled out a thick wad of cash from his bag and slammed it on the table. I like a girl with personality. Sit on my lap and finish this bottle and all this cash is yours. I saw the conflict and unwillingness in Laura's eyes. If she wasn't truly in dire straits, who would willingly work in a place like this? Watching the girl, torn by her inner conflict, I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. It was like seeing myself, so isolated and helpless, desperately wanting to escape the mire, but surrounded by mockery and ridicule. I don't know what came over me, but I walked over and put my arm around her shoulder. Come with me, I'll give you more. Laura's eyes lit up when she saw me, like a puppy seeing its owner. Later, I found out Laura's mother was critically ill, and she urgently needed money for surgery. Though the amount wasn't much to me, to Laura, it was a lifesaver. She couldn't pay me back, so she could only try to repay me in other ways. Laura would wait at the company entrance every morning and evening to bring me meals. Whenever I worked late, she'd sit on the steps with a late-night snack, waiting for me. When I had to entertain clients, she'd wait outside the restaurant. Afterward, she'd take me home and meticulously care for me. Ever since Bella's miscarriage, I had started staying frequently at my own apartment in the city. So Bella had no idea I had such a caring girlfriend by my side. That day, I had pushed myself to the limit and landed a project that was solely mine. One moment I was all smiles, seeing off the client. The next, I was leaning against a pillar, vomiting my guts out. Laura suddenly appeared, patting my back and offering me water. I felt so sick, I couldn't control the spasms in my stomach. The murky liquid even splattered on her hand and clothes. Sorry, are you still feeling sick? I'll take you to the hospital. Her urgent, gentle words melted me. I had been lonely for so long, dealing with my wife's betrayals and coldness. I had almost forgotten what it felt like to depend on someone. I asked Laura to take me home. She bustled about, familiar with the routine. Ignoring the mess on her own clothes, the first thing she did when we got home was head to the kitchen to make something to sober me up. Under the warm yellow light, her silhouette became a picture I'd always cherish, the image of the home I had once longed for. I stared at her intently and suddenly blurted out, "Do you like me?" Laura paused, then gave a wry smile. "Is it that not obvious? I've been pursuing you. Clumsily, I know. But I'm married. I know. Doesn't it bother you?" "It does, but I can't help it. I was too late." Bitterness welled up in Laura's eyes. "I don't know if you'll get a divorce, but I know I like you, and I want to be with you." Faced with her candid and sincere confession, I was shamefully moved. Perhaps I had been drawn to her since our first meeting at the bar. Otherwise, I wouldn't have allowed her to slowly cross my boundaries. Thinking of the handsome men around Bella, I wondered if they had all been this devoted. I suddenly empathized a little with my philandering wife. Someone this amazing was indeed hard to refuse. "Stay tonight." I held her, tentatively kissing her. It was just a gentle touch, yet she trembled with excitement, eagerly pulling me closer, awkwardly but passionately taking the lead. She belatedly realized her clothes were dirty and apologized. Flustered, "I'm sorry, I got carried away." I smiled gently and wiped her glistening lips. "It's okay." That night, Laura was restless for a long time. Her movements were inexperienced and tender, yet always carried a reverent carefulness. Only with my unspoken permission did she dare to reveal her true self. I felt a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in a long time. Bella was right. A young body certainly had its appeal. After a wild night, I was truly exhausted. I was jolted awake by a piercingly loud phone ringtone. I fumbled for it with my eyes closed, but the person beside me picked it up. Her voice was husky and magnetic. "Hello? He's still sleeping." The phone was placed back down. Laura snuggled closer, murmuring, "It's still early. Sleep a little longer." I actually heard it. The room was too quiet. Bella's voice was very clear. I held the hand resting on my waist. "She's learned to be a little bad too." I was in my office working when Bella suddenly burst in. She glared fiercely at the female assistant who was giving me a report. "Is she the one?" The poor assistant looked bewildered and terrified. I sighed and rubbed my temples. "You can go now." I stared at the unreasonable Bella. "What are you doing here, making a scene? Who is that person?" I sat back in my chair, arms crossed, looking at the furious woman before me with a hint of amusement. "Honey, have you forgotten? You were the one who told me to go out and find someone new. You said I shouldn't just stay home moping all day, that I could meet some younger people. That's because I didn't expect you to actually do it." I scoffed. "Seriously, Bella? Are you that hypocritical? I know of at least 5 of your flings. I've only found one. Just one. Don't worry, I'm not like you. One at a time." Pain flickered across Bella's face. "Mike, don't you love me anymore?" I smiled faintly, calmly replying, "I did. Past tense. Can't we go back?" I felt like I'd heard a joke. "Honey, what nonsense are you talking about? You're still my wife, and I'm still your husband." Bella stared at me, her gaze heavy. Some things had changed long ago. We both knew it. Bella stayed in my office for a long time. We sat in silence. I paid her no mind, just focused on my work. Bella watched me quietly. After a long while, she murmured, "Mike, you've really changed." Then she gave a bitter smile. "Actually, you haven't changed. This is who you were always meant to be." I ignored Bella. Just then, Laura texted me a picture of her profile in the library. "Just talked to my advisor about my thesis. He said I'm doing pretty well." Looking at the deliberately posed photo, the vibrant energy radiating from her, I felt a little infected by her cheerfulness. Hearing Bella stand up, I quickly closed the phone screen. So scared of me finding out about her? Of course I am. She's my only sweetheart. What if you try to hurt her? Bella clenched her fists, struggling to suppress her rage. Unfortunately, she hadn't mastered hiding her emotions very well. Her heavy breathing still betrayed her inner turmoil. A secret thrill, a dark satisfaction, coursed through me. There was a time when I was the one living in constant anxiety and fear. Now that the tables had turned, it was Bella's turn to taste betrayal. After a while, Bella finally calmed down. "Come back to my parents' place with me tonight." Mom and Dad said they haven't seen you in ages. I frowned slightly. Back when Bella's affair led to her accidental miscarriage, I was one of the victims, yet I was also blamed by everyone. After that incident, neither her family nor mine was particularly fond of me. But since Bella and I were still technically married, we had to keep up appearances. When we arrived at her parents' house, my mother-in-law was unusually warm, fussing over me with questions about my well-being. I was a bit surprised, but I quickly understood. When I married Bella right after college, I went from being a highly educated man to a kept man dependent on his wife's family. Aside from occasionally accompanying Bella to banquets as Mike, I was mostly useless in their eyes. To my mother-in-law, although I represented my family, I was still dependent on her daughter. When we first got married, she could maintain a veneer of politeness, but later she started bossing me around and laying down rules. Bella was too busy with her flings and social life, always thinking family relations were trivial matters. She never intervened, just told me to endure it. Therefore, my relationship with my mother-in-law wasn't close. But after the miscarriage incident, I aggressively joined my own family's company, using strong tactics to force my father to hand over power prematurely, even sidelining my own younger brother. I had risked everything to gain the power I now held in the company, so naturally, she wouldn't dare to disrespect me. At the dinner table, I seemed to have forgotten the old rules. I just ate my food, and my mother-in-law didn't say much. Indeed, only with equal power can one even talk about fairness. After dinner, my in-laws inevitably started in on the "when are you having kids" talk. The same old spiel over and over. It was getting on my nerves. I chuckled. I remember Tim claiming he had a child, supposedly with his ex-girlfriend Ashley, and he was even demanding you take responsibility, Bella. What happened with that? Did it just fizzle out? My in-laws and Bella all looked embarrassed. I knew about Tim's child. It wasn't that I was intentionally prying, but I had a subconscious feeling that things with Bella wouldn't last. So I'd secretly kept tabs on the more dramatic lovers around her. After all, we were all business people. This kind of thing would be ready-made evidence in a future divorce. Tim had used his position to cause me trouble in the early days, secretly sowing discord between Bella and me. Now, although I'd moved on, Bella still had a steady stream of handsome young men vying for her attention. He, banking on having been with Bella the longest, thought he could use a child to tie her down and was less than polite to her other lovers. Turns out he picked a fight he couldn't win this time. It was a complete farce. Bella went to the hospital to pacify Tim, but was hounded by his family demanding official status and threatening to protest at her company with banners if she didn't comply. She had to pay them off to keep things quiet. Then Bella turned around to soothe another lover, who then wouldn't stop complaining. It was probably all this drama that annoyed Bella, making her remember me, her original husband, who hadn't caused a scene in a long time. I glanced at Bella with a smirk, my face full of amusement. Bella said awkwardly, "That's all in the past. Mike, you are my husband." I ignored her, remarking with a hint of sympathy for certain men, "It's a shame, really. He's just a kid. With a father like that, who knows what'll happen to him." Everyone's expressions turned even uglier. That night, my in-laws and Bella insisted I stay over at their place. Naturally, I wasn't keen. Staying here meant sharing a bed with Bella. The thought of it disgusted me now, let alone actually lying next to her. But I didn't want to overtly embarrass my in-laws, so I planned to slip away quietly after they went to bed. When Bella saw me still in my day clothes, not having washed up, her face instantly chilled. "You're going out. Why? Company business, or perhaps I need to entertain someone." "You're going to see her." I sighed with a smile. "Honey, some things are better left unsaid. We're at my parents' house today. Do you really have to embarrass me like this?" I propped my chin on my hand, looking at the woman with reddened eyes. "Bella, last time my mother was sick and you came back to my parents' place with me, weren't you called away by a phone call from Tim?" Bella was speechless. "Just be reasonable, okay? Be good." I calmly got up to leave. My arm was grabbed. Bella's voice was low, a rare gesture of wanting me to stay. "Can you not go?" I kept a smile on my face as I pried her fingers off, one by one. "Bella, don't. This is just pathetic." Bella couldn't sit still after all and managed to find Laura. Laura told me immediately that Bella had asked to meet her. She also swore up and down that no matter what sweet talk or bribes Bella used, she would stand firmly by my side. I don't know why, but I instinctively believed her. So I made a special trip to watch the show. When I arrived, Bella was already in the throw money at her to make her leave phase. Looking at the bank card on the table, I was a little curious how much Bella was willing to cough up for me. Unfortunately, I was too late. Laura, looking righteous, had already refused on the spot. I really like Mike, and I'm not with him for the money. What are you pretending for? You young people will do anything for money, Bella sneered. Laura lowered her head and smiled faintly. Lady, the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. You don't need to cling to the position of Mike's wife, waiting a man who doesn't love you. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. That line was just too familiar. Both of them turned their heads at the same time and noticed me. I gave a casual wave. At that moment, Bella's expression was priceless. Laura immediately stood up to greet me, hugging my arm and starting to act cute. You're here. Quick, sit down. The desserts here are pretty good, try some. Bella, as if competing with someone, said, I remember my husband likes mango pomelo sago. I smiled faintly without saying anything. Laura burst out laughing. You really don't know him at all. He's allergic to mango. Bella's expression froze. And, baby's stomach has been upset lately. The doctor told him to avoid cold and raw food. Laura added considerately. I patted my young girlfriend's arm. You head back first. I'll talk to her. Laura interlocked her fingers with mine. Be good. Laura looked at me with pleading eyes, then glanced at Bella, who had a sour expression. She left, looking back every few steps. I felt no embarrassment at being caught cheating. Instead, I calmly took a couple of bites of dessert. It really is good. Is this boy even an adult? How could you? Bella said sarcastically. She's a senior in college, of course she's an adult. I elegantly wiped my mouth. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Don't give her a hard time. So afraid of me hurting her. You should understand better than anyone. When your lovers used to show up, weren't you always the first to defend them? I smiled faintly. We've been husband and wife for a while. We do have some things in common. Putting yourself in my shoes, you can understand my concerns, right? Bella stared at me, her gaze heavy. Mike, you've really changed. You changed first. Bella sighed deeply. I won't get a divorce. Whether we divorce or not, I don't really care at the moment. After all, we've made it this many years. Especially since our family's businesses are so intertwined. Dividing assets in a divorce would be a mess. Is it only about interests between us now? What else? Ignoring the shattered look in Bella's eyes, I remarked casually, good thing Laura isn't the type to make a fuss. She's fine with anything. Mike, can't we go back? From the moment that first lover showed up at our door, there was no going back for us. Once I did love Bella. I knew from a very young age that I would marry her someday, but I didn't resist it. I was filled with joy. After all, what could be happier than marrying the person you love? My parents were typically strict. Although they never deprived me, there was always an emotional void. During those days when my parents were busy with their careers, Bella was always there for me. I still remember that stormy night. The power suddenly went out, plunging the entire room into darkness. My parents had taken my younger brother and sister out to a summer camp, leaving me alone in the pitch-black environment, desperately waiting for daylight. It was Bella who suddenly burst in, like a hero descending from the heavens, bringing light and warmth. She held me tightly, gently comforting me. Mike, don't be afraid. I'll always be with you. In that moment, I believed Bella loved me. Unfortunately, the outside world was too distracting, and her love was too fleeting. From the moment she allowed Tim to belittle me, from the moment she let Leo confront me, from all the times she indulged her lovers in ways that hurt me, that love vanished. Sure enough, in the end, love relies entirely on conscience. Anyway, since Bella and I had cleared the air, I started coming home even less. After all, compared to the passionate and sincere Laura, being in the same room with Bella was truly depressing. One day, Bella suddenly called me. Tomorrow night is the company's annual party. You're still my husband, after all, so you need to attend with me. Okay. Mike, what is it? I've already transferred Tim to a branch office. And Joshua, Leo, I've broken things off with all of them. What does that have to do with me? Bella's breathing hitched. I've broken up with them. Can you break up with her too? No. Mike. I glared at Laura, who was playfully teasing me. Bella, although I don't know why you're suddenly staging this comeback drama, there's really no going back for us. You broke up with them, you can find new handsome men. I don't mind. As for what I do, you can't interfere. I'll be at the annual party. I hung up decisively. Bella and I were business people, after all. No matter what was going on privately, in public, we still played the part of a loving couple. Bella was radiant, holding my arm and murmuring affectionately, like a devoted wife who adored her husband. I responded with a gentle smile, giving her the public image she needed. I just didn't expect this woman to be so calculating as to invite Laura as well. In the center of the dance floor, Bella's arm was around my waist as we glided gracefully, like a perfect couple, calmly accepting compliments from all directions. I smiled and looked up, only to meet Laura's shattered, humble gaze. Bella deliberately steered me in front of Laura. See? This is the difference between us. You, a college student who hasn't even graduated. How can you give Mike happiness? Or are you just content to be a secret mistress? A leech clinging to Mike and sucking him dry. I said coldly, you've gone too far. Mike, I just want you to know it's okay to take a wrong turn occasionally. Only I am your right track. The right track. I scoffed at Bella. Were you ever on it? I pushed Bella's arm away and started to walk off. It was the company's annual party, after all, so I didn't want to embarrass her too much. As for Laura, I could comfort her when I got home later. I stood to the side and got a glass of champagne from a server. Not far off, Bella was still laying into Laura. I was getting annoyed when I suddenly heard a creaking sound from the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. I looked up. Watch out! I yelled, instinctively dashing towards Laura. Crash! With a huge bang, the ornate chandelier suddenly fell. Luckily, everyone managed to get out of the way in time, and no one was seriously injured. Only Bella's arm had a few red scratches from the debris. She looked at me, her eyes red, and demanded, Mike, don't you want me anymore? I looked at her silently, thinking to myself, she looks terrible. I was talking about her in that moment and also about the man I used to be. The unexpected fall of the chandelier brought the annual party to an early close. This was no small matter for the company. Bella quickly had her arm bandaged and then got busy dealing with the aftermath. I slipped away quietly with Laura. Laura was very unsettled, clinging to me tightly all night. Actually, that time at the bar wasn't our first meeting. But when you walked towards me, I decided I would never let you go. We went to the same university. I attended a lecture you gave during my freshman year. Back then, I already thought you were truly outstanding. Around that time, I was framed by my roommate and nearly lost my scholarship. I went to the dean's office to try and get justice for myself. You happened to be there. Everyone else was just watching the show. But you spoke up. You said that if she hadn't been incredibly wronged, she wouldn't have mustered the courage to stand there. You said they should give the kid a fair chance. I gently stroked Laura's soft hair. I've forgotten all about that. It's okay. I'll always remember. You can hold back tears when you're sad, unless someone comforts you. So I cried for a long time afterward. I really like you. I was thinking back then, a man as outstanding as you would surely shine in your career. But then I heard you became a stay-at-home husband. I thought it was a pity, but it was your choice and I respected it. Until I found out you weren't happy. Laura cupped my face. I've had a crush on you for so long. I kissed her lips softly. Don't you mind being a secret lover for the rest of your life? Never able to be seen in public? I do mind, but I don't have a choice. Who asked me to arrive late on the scene? More than my reputation, I'm afraid of losing you. I've always been here. So, while I was trapped in the cage of my marriage, someone had been silently loving me all along. Everything that followed happened naturally. Her insecurity, my touched emotions, All were expressed through the most primal form of interaction. Early the next morning, I woke up with a jolt, a strong sense of determination surging within me. Laura woke up right after, looking at me with concern. "What's wrong? Did you not sleep well last night?" I waved my hand dismissively, signaling her not to worry. A crystal clear thought rose in my mind, unwavering. Last night, Laura finally told me she has a young sister. Their parents passed away early, and a relative had been caring for the sister. But now, as the only adult relative, Laura needed to take on the responsibility of raising her. She had been hesitant about how to tell me, afraid of burdening me. Back at the office, I thought for a long time. Laura's sister, this whole situation, it was like a light illuminating my decision. This child's existence turned all my previous "it doesn't matter" feelings into "it matters" a great deal. I didn't mind maintaining a superficial marriage with Bella, but I couldn't bear the thought of a child I wanted to protect growing up in a dysfunctional family environment lacking genuine love. A strong desire to build a real family welled up inside me. I wanted to give that child a real home, filled with the fatherly love and warmth I never fully received, and to ensure Laura no longer had to bear her burdens alone. Looking at the photo of me and my girlfriend on my phone's lock screen, I finally made up my mind. Maybe I should be selfish this once, for them and for myself. Bella happily agreed to meet me. She showed up holding a bouquet of roses, dressed in an exquisite, very formal suit. Felt very deliberate. "What's all this? I'm pursuing you again." Bella's eyes were full of deep affection. "Mike, we've known each other since we were young, and we have years of marriage between us. Even if we both took wrong turns along the way, we'll still find our way back to each other. Mike, give me a chance and give yourself a chance. Let's start over, okay?" Faced with Bella's sincerity, I just felt speechless. Maybe I didn't hate her as much anymore, but I definitely didn't love her anymore either. I said calmly, "Bella, let's get a divorce. Laura has a younger sister, who will be like a sister to me too. We'll raise her together. I want to give this child a stable home." Bella's eyes looked like they were about to pop out, her hands clenched into fists, veins bulging on the back of them. I paid no attention and continued slowly. "Has the accident at the annual party been fully investigated?" As soon as I said that, Bella deflated. That accident wasn't an accident. It was Tim's deliberate act of revenge. He thought I had found out about him using the child to entangle Bella and told her, causing Bella to become completely cold towards him and cut off his financial support. So, he harbored resentment and wanted to retaliate against me. According to the schedule, I was supposed to be standing under that chandelier giving a speech. I sneered, "Talk about karma." Bella sagged, but she was still putting up a desperate struggle. Bella said through gritted teeth, "I will treat that child as my own." "That won't be necessary. Do we really have to get a divorce? I don't understand what you're clinging to. Is there any point to our marriage anymore?" Bella continued to argue our family's relationship. "A divorce isn't that easy. The division of assets will be very complicated, and besides, I used to think it was complicated too." I ruthlessly cut off Bella's monologue. Now I feel like, for Laura and that child, it doesn't seem so complicated anymore. After all, I've already lost one child. I don't want the family I cherish to live in the shadows any longer. If it were 3 years ago, I would indeed have reservations about divorce. But times have changed. I am now the actual person in charge of the company. My incompetent brother-in-law has been reined in, and my in-laws can't stir up much trouble anymore. With absolute power, I have absolute freedom of choice. Out of respect for our past, I'm willing to talk this through calmly with you. That doesn't mean I don't have the means to do it decisively. You received the email I sent, right? Isn't it better to part amicably? Bella looked at me in disbelief. You've been collecting evidence all this time, just to divorce me? Not really. Some of it was sent to me by your little lovers. Later, I thought it was a shame to let it go to waste, so I kept it carefully. Bella, if I want a divorce, it's really not that difficult. There's plenty of evidence of your affairs, though I have some of my own. But if we really go to court, it won't look good for either family. Think about it carefully. Bella's eyes reddened, and she stared at me, her face etched with pain. Mike, if I had resisted the temptations back then, would things be different between us? I laughed heartily. Who knows? After all, there are no ifs. The division of assets between Bella and me dragged on for a month, but we finally divorced. When I walked out of the courthouse, Laura was standing at the entrance, waiting anxiously. The moment she saw me come out, her eyes lit up. She rushed towards me immediately, looking at her tear-filled eyes. I deliberately teased her. What are you crying for? Sure, I'm single again, but that doesn't automatically mean I'm picking you, you know? It's okay. As long as you're happy. But I'll keep pestering you. I gently wiped the tears from the corner of Laura's eyes. Felt so good to be cherished. I gave Bella a polite wave and took Laura's hand, walking towards our brand new life together. Bella, left standing alone, quietly watched Mike's retreating back. It was as if she saw her younger self, leading a young Mike through their youth, leading him to the altar. But times had changed. He had left her behind, forever.